All right, Matt Gouget, Get Better Everyday podcast. I've got Scott Beebe, Business on Purpose. I'm personally excited for this one. Going to dig into a lot of strain and struggle that I know I'm not the only one as a small business owner feeling. Scott's the pro, been at it for 9 years, helping businesses scale. So thanks for joining me, Scott.
Matt, thank you. By the way, I tell people all the time, it's a lot of work to run a podcast. And so I'm not naive to how much that is and how grateful I am that you've invited me to be on here. So thanks for doing all the work behind the scenes to get this set up so that we could be here.
Yeah, it's been a ton of fun for me, and conversations like the one I know we're going to jump into. For me is the value in this. So in return for keeping the promise to myself, I'm going to record one every single week, and I think I'm going on 80 plus weeks of recording one. I'm learning a lot, right?
Yeah.
From diverse set of guests across different businesses. Today specifically, I'm super excited because I know the pain, the struggle of entrepreneurship and running a small business is one that I feel. I've got tons of colleagues and friends that feel it. There's going to be listeners that are like, that's how I feel. So tell us a little bit about yourself, what you've been up to at Business on Purpose, and then maybe we'll dive into some tactical advice for myself and the listener alike.
Yeah, certainly. So context is usually helpful. I think it's helpful to understand a little bit of personal context. Actually, my wife and I have been married at the time of this recording just over 25 years, and we've got 3 kids. All are out of the house, and so we've got a daughter who's married, and we've got 2 boys who are both in university. And so we get to spend a lot of time seeing new things because we do not stand still. In fact, where I'm at right now is in downtown Greenville, South Carolina. Spend a fair amount of time up here, even though we live down in the low country of South Carolina. So we're all over the place, but in some really good ways and some really exciting ways. And then my background professionally, it makes a ton of sense once you lay it out. I was a university undergrad, graduated, went to theology school, was a telemarketer, and then graduated from the theology school, sold drugs legally through a company called Pfizer a few years, and then was a pastor, a church planner, went back to selling drugs, volunteered out in Nigeria back and forth, then came on full time with that organization for a couple of years. And then we started Business on Purpose in 2015. So, it's all linear, right? It all makes sense. But back in 2015, due to just some external circumstances, I found myself 39 years old, married, 3 kids, and unemployed. One day, it was on a Friday, actually, February 27th, almost at the time you and I are talking right now, just a couple of weeks away, 9 years ago. And I called a couple of buddies of mine who knew what was going on with the organization that I was a part of. That we were just kind of watching this tailspin happen. And I called him the next Monday, which I think would have been in March at that point of 2015, and said, "Hey, I'm going to start a coaching business." I'd been asked a lot about different things. My dad's an engineer, so I'm not an engineer and will never be one. But my dad's an engineer and my mom's a very analytical person. And so I got a lot of that mindset to be able to deconstruct things. So I was finding that I was being asked by friends of mine who were business owners about business challenges. And then I would just start to deconstruct. And then, Matt, through that deconstruction, you would start to find some solutions. So that's how we started it. There's a long story about that too, which is super fun. But here we are 9 years in. We have a team of 10, and we have one isolated mission, and that is to liberate owners from chaos to make time for what matters most. So we serve, as of today, 91 business owners around North America, and all across the country. And about 83% of those are in what we call the AEC space, the architecture, engineering, construction space. But that includes all things real estate, more everything around that sort of supports that industry is where we work.
Awesome, man. Yeah, that's a fun background and something you said, which I've seen some of the stuff that you've put out there, liberated from chaos, resonated with me so much as a small business owner. And I know that it probably resonates with others and listeners. So maybe walk us through what a business owner you come across, what a common problem with them is at the beginning stages. I think that I'm super interested in that because most either, my personal business or other loan originators I coach, as they grow, they've got to bring people on. So they're bringing on number 2, 3, and 4, and they operate there for quite a long time, the best of the best grow teams of up to 50. You know, Sean Bosnian's in Massachusetts. He's got a team of 50 and he's funding $1 billion a year in loans. Most couldn't even imagine that, right? Because maybe they're good at sales, they're good at like a couple things. What would you say for the beginning stage small business owner, entrepreneur who just hears that word chaos? That elicits something in me, and I think it probably elicits something in others, where it's like, if this guy can solve that feeling and make that feeling go away, I would, everything in life would become better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll kind of reverse roles here, put my podcast host hat on. It clearly triggers something in you. If you could put words to it, what would be the words you would use to describe some of the chaos that you feel?
I think for me, and I'm 10 years into mortgage, and it's funny how you can be a decade into something and still feel like you have no idea what the heck you're doing.
Yeah.
10 years in, I still feel like there's days or there's weeks where I'm wearing multiple hats. I know deep down, I've got to get focused. I've got to be, in my zone of genius, doing the most important activities that move the business forward. And I've got to delegate, and I need other people to help. And even with support staff in place, it's like, do I spend time, improving myself and getting better at this process? Do I spend time training and making sure the team around me is doing better? And, how do I have time for all of those things? Like, that's something that no matter how far along I get. And every once in a while I look back, I go, okay, like this business is a lot smoother, a lot better than it was a year ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. But still, I'm operating in what feels like at times chaos.
Yeah, that's great articulation. So your phraseology around I'm wearing multiple hats. So I'll take that and sort of latch on to that a little bit. We actually have a vision story for our business. Everybody we work with does. It's multi pages, 7 different categories. One of the categories is an ideal client category. And in our ideal client category, it's almost a full page. What we've done is we actually have that phrase that you mentioned. I feel like I'm wearing multiple hats. I'm juggling 17 different balls. The one person said, I feel like I'm waking up and throwing a Hail Mary every day. Isn't that like tangible? You could feel that, right? And there's just so many of those phrases that we latch on to when we look at, and we have a common enemy. Scott and Matt have a common enemy, and its name is chaos. We're here to fight that enemy. I'm not here as a coach to fight my client. I'm not here to fight my client's competitors. We're here to fight the common enemy of chaos and go after it. And so you're feeling this, and the real evil of chaos is it wants you to continue to feel like you're wearing multiple hats. And so what it will do in a reverse sort of coup of your mind is it will actually make you become a little bit of addicted to the multiple hat syndrome, so much so that it makes you feel like a superhero. So I'm trying not to make a shameless plug for my book, but the title is interesting because I got it from a friend of mine, and it's called Let Your Business Burn. And here's where we got the title from is I said, one of the phrases on our ideal client that section that I mentioned is, I feel like I'm putting out fires all day long, right? I'm sure you've heard that. I'm sure you probably said it.
Yeah.
And so a buddy of mine, Jesse Cole, he said, Scott, what's the opposite of that? And I said, well, I just let it burn. Like, I guess. And he goes, yes. And I sat there and I thought about this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Matt wakes up every day, and in an effort to feel needed, valued, I want to go down the psychological road, but we all get it. We're all in the same boat. What Matt will do is he'll find any problem that exists. By the way, if you want a constant list of problems, just open your email. So if you want, email is not a to-do list. It's not a DM message. We have totally misused that tool. But if you want to stay in chaos, keep your email open all day. That is a surefire way to stay in chaos, because what it's going to do is it's going to constantly alert you to little fires. What we're not aware of is 90% of those fires, if we would just let them burn, they'll burn themselves out. Like, we don't need to do that. But Matt kind of needs to feel like a superhero. Someone put the cape on. Somebody's going to tell me about a little fire, and I'm going to go put it out. Because, and here's the excuse line that we use, it's just easier if I do it than having to babysit somebody else to do it, right? Well, yes, today that may be true. Tomorrow, it's going to hurt you. So we've got a phrase that we say all the time. your product is not your product. Let's stop obsessing over the marketing, the sales, and all that kind of stuff around the product. Your product is not your product. Your process is your product. So take your world of mortgage. I mentioned to you a little bit earlier, you don't technically own anything. You're brokering relationships. So what you own is a brokerage of, which is built completely on relationships, which tells me if something happens to Matt, what is there at that point? But if what Matt has done is to create a unique sort of proprietary process of brokering those relationships outside of him, where Matt is not the key point, but the process is the key point that leverages other people, systems, et cetera. Now, all of a sudden, Matt has built an asset, a process that he can then go take to the market, sell to the market or whatever. And so we've got to start to reorient our mind to help us to understand that if you want to stop wearing multiple hats, then what you're going to have to do is create written, documented process, and then proactive. You mentioned the word training. Proactively train that process to people over and over and over again, because repetition is the mother of all learning.
I love that so much. So much of that stuff, that I've lived through, I think. And to your point, when I had a great support staff, operational person that I worked with who would basically purposely keep me out of things and then prove to me, Matt, you would have jumped in 35 seconds after that email got sent. Here we are 90 minutes later. They got their answer. They solved their own problem, whether it's a processing issue with a loan or whatever it is, like it solves itself more. And so by letting it burn, it doesn't mean it's necessarily going to burn down. Sometimes it just solves itself. And so I love that. And what I've learned through, having great support staff is that I'm doing them a disservice a lot of times by solving a problem for them, rather like letting them use that problem and solving it as training ground for the next problem and the problem after that. And so, I'm robbing them of training by jumping in. I think a lot of people, especially in the mortgage space and the real estate space, are doing that when they want to grow a team. And they're like, I wish my team could do X, Y, and Z. Well, every time X, Y, or Z comes up, you do it. How do you expect them to get better at it if they're never given any at bats?
So let's talk about some pragmatic ways to do that. Because I think there will be people who listen, hear this and go, I know the problem. I remember reading E-Myth one time, my very first time. If you've never read E-Myth by Michael Gerber, it's an absolute must read. And it's decades old now. And it's sort of the foundational, I don't want to call it the Bible for small business owners, but kind of. It's where a lot of us got our start in the world that we're in right now. And so you've got this situation with E-Myth, and he's going through it, and I'm reading it. And I'm like, I got it. It makes so much sense. It's so clear. What's the solution? Where's the step 1, 2? And there's some in there, but not like, that's why we built a roadmap that we have to be able to do that. So we want to look at this. We want people to hear this conversation and go, okay, I got it. It's awareness. Now, what do I do? We're suffering from this societal mindset disease right now. And it comes out, the symptom sounds like this. Nobody wants to work anymore. I can't find good people to work anymore. Nobody wants to sweat anymore. Nobody wants to. Well, we actually did research. We found articles dating back to 1894 declaring that nobody wants to work anymore. So this is not a novel concept that we're dealing with. Here's what we've found through all the people we've talked to. We speak all over the country. We meet all sorts of people, and we ask largely the same questions wherever we go. And what we hear, especially among the 20 and the 30-year-olds, is what they want more than anything else: money, security, all those things. What they want more than anything else is one word: clarity. That's what they want. And so they will stay at a lower rate with great clarity than staying at a place at a much higher rate with chaos. Because they back, the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70 years old, they would endure chaos because there was no other way at that point. Like Seth Godin called it, I think, the chosen society. Like you had to be chosen. Well, now you don't. Like you've got your own podcast, Mike. I've got my own podcast. We can do whatever we want around this stuff. Now, nobody may buy it, but that's our decision to be able to go after that. And so we're starting to see the societal disease. Nobody wants to work or feel the societal disease. And we come back and go, wait a second, what is Scott doing? What is Matt doing to bring a radical amount of clarity? And so there's a couple ways that we can do this pragmatically that are really helpful. I'll give you some examples just from this week in our world. We still do this. We have got hundreds of training videos in our business. People ask us all the time, how do you teach somebody how to be a business coach? Like, is there a training certification? Yeah, there's some, they're just not very good. And so what we did is we went to work building our own. So when somebody comes in with us, they've got a lot of raw skill. And then what we do is we overwhelm them with training. Well, how do we do it? And we follow what we call the systems mindset. Whatever the next thing it is that you're about to do. So Matt, I'm going to put you on the spot. In your mortgage business, what's the next task you need to do? So when we get off this call, and it might be tomorrow or whatever, but what's the next sort of task you need to do for the mortgage side of your business?
Follow up with
Okay.
potential clients. Yeah.
All right. So if I'm on your team, I need to know how to follow up for two reasons. Number one, extend your follow up. Number two, what if you're not here? Like, I need to know how to follow up. So what you'll do is, if you're following up by phone, you'll literally just hit record on some device and record yourself talking on the phone and going, hey, by the way, I'm recording this because we train our people and whatever. If you're on a Zoom, hit record because they see it. They actually have to accept it. If it's some sort of email thing, then you click some screen share, loom.com, something, whatever, so that you can capture the thing. But the next time you follow up, Matt, that's what I want to challenge you to do, is capture it like it's the last time you'll ever have to follow up with anybody. Now, you won't, but act like it is. And so that's what we've done in ours. That's what we get all of our clients to do, is the next time you do a thing, capture it like it's the last time you'll ever do it.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. And I think that, looking back, I'm pretty self-aware. And I've grown a team, and in 2020 and 21, I did a ton of mortgages.
I bet.
Where I could have for sure done better is documenting processes. And when I think about it, I want to be honest with myself. Radical clarity is something I don't think I provided.
Yeah.
In a fast moving world, and especially like when there's rapid growth, and 2019 to 2020, people doubled, tripled their businesses. It's like, come help. We need help. We need, we got to follow up with this many people. And it's like a quick 19-second tutorial on like, yeah, we make the call, we log it in Pipedrive, we set a follow-up task, go do it.
Yeah.
I think I'm probably not alone, and I'll be vulnerable here. I'm a great doer of things. I'm probably not the best trainer, and I'm probably one that could use some work and get better at putting systems in place.
Yeah.
And not saying that I don't have systems, because we've got boatloads, but I think that's like a missing ingredient for a lot of small businesses. I think is like, how do you do this every single time? Because that question was posed to me. And I was 5 or 6 years into mortgage, and they were like, every single time lead comes in, what is the documented process that you follow? Whether it's you, somebody on your team, or whatnot. And I was like, well, here's what and the sad truth is that most teams, whether it's mortgage or any other business, you might interview 5 people and get 5 different answers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Well, and a lot of times, Matt, it's really no harder than just sitting down and mapping out the flow. And would you be okay if I shared my screen?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So I'm going to bring this up. Now, I don't want anybody to be thrown off who's looking at this. Our team built an internal portal. So everything we do, you can see we have an on the business tab. So everything we do internally on the business, here's all those things there, our culture calendar. This is called the process roadmap that you're seeing right here. And I'm going to go over that. But we've taken everything and put it into one spot. Now, if we didn't have anything else except this is a map of how you run our entire business. So if something happens to me, or if something happens to Jesse or Thomas or Ashley or whoever, then you come in here and this is how you run the business. And I'm gonna tell you how to do this on a scratch piece of paper, so lest you think that this is some complicated spreadsheet. Actually, it's Google Draw, which is free, just so you know. And so you come in here and put little boxes. There's our marketing dashboard, how we run our website. Here's our installation coaching roadmap. I mean, all the stuff is on here. Even the most basic fundamentals things. Our vision is right there. Our mission, our unique core values, how we run our coaches meetings, vision days, annual letters, org charts. Everything's right there that you can go find. Now you look at this and go, good grief, how do you build something like that? Well, over time. So here's how we're going to start. And what you can do is you can go buy a very, very expensive collaborative software called a spreadsheet. So if you just know how to open a spreadsheet, Just start there. And then I'm going to give you a little cheat column here. All you need to do is go to the 4 columns across the top and do marketing in the first. Now, every business is made up of 4 walls. That's it. The mortgage business, the ice cream business, the 18-wheeler business, the whatever, the coaching business, all made up of 4 walls. Number 1, marketing. And that tells the world we're here. Hey, we're here. That's what you and I are doing right now. We're marketing to each other. Hey, we're here. And then to all of these people who are listening, now they're aware that we exist and we're aware that they exist. The second column is sales. That's where we take these newfound dating relationships and marketing and we walk down the aisle to get married together. We're doing a deal. We're getting married. And then operations is the third column. That's where we fulfill the vow that we made at the sales altar. So we dated in marketing, we got married in sales. Now we're fulfilling our vows over time in the operations. And the administrative function, that's the fourth column, administration. That fourth column is where we pay the bills, change the lights, vacuum the floors, and change the diapers, right? And wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning because we're either having a bad day or we got kids or whatever. That's the life of running a business. So if we take those 4 columns, then what we can do is we can just start with marketing on the left, or if you want to start on the right with admin, that's fine. Usually that's pretty easy. And we go to the admin column and go, all right, what do we do administratively? Well, we've got payables, receivables, payroll, insurance certificates, we've got business licenses. And so you just start brain dumping everything down that column on the spreadsheet. And then once you've kind of gotten like a popcorn bag in a microwave where it's like, okay, it's starting to slow down now. I better turn this thing off. Fine, move to the next column. I would probably save operations till last because that's usually the most complex. For most businesses, unless you're an injury attorney law firm and you're just all about marketing, right? But then you go to your marketing and go, okay, we've got social channels, website, live events, whatever. And you just start going there. If you can just start there and then every single week, pick off another 1 or 3 or 2 or 5 of these processes that you've written down on there over the course of a few months or a year, you're going to have it all booked on one quote sheet of paper. And then you'll look at it and go, well, what do I do with it? Go to your team meeting every week. That should be happening, by the way. Every business should have a 1-hour agenda-driven, leader-led team meeting that is not talking about projects, just so you know, it's talking about the business. And so in that meeting, that's where you pull up your process roadmap and pick one process and proactively train on it. And if you do that every year, you're going to have 45 to 50 processes that you trained in a 12-month period, all because it's right there on that sheet. So if you can just start with a spreadsheet, 4 columns, brain dump, 1 at a time. And then over a period of time, you'll get there and your business will all be on 1 sheet of paper.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, that's super. That's good. And it's funny because I think you said it too. It's simple stuff.
Simple.
It's just a matter.
Everything I gave you, you can do on free material, right? Even on a scratch sheet of paper, you can do it right there.
Right. Yeah. And I think where a lot of people get lost is they're so busy working in the business, they don't spend any time. So maybe I'd love to get your advice on that. You get somebody who comes in and, they're either in a growth period or they're, just starting out. And so they're like every last second of every day, I got to focus on sales. I need to get sales across the finish line or else I'm going to shut my doors. Yeah. How do you coach them through spending the needed time on the business and not all of it in the business?
So today's a good day to ask me that question because for about 8 months, I've had on my 12-week goals, we do 12-week goals. And for about 8 months, I've had as one of my goals to finish the updates on all of our proprietary installation roadmap scripting. It's about 26, 27 modules of scripting, each with about 8 to 10 Google Doc pages. Like they're not small. And so for 8 months, I just can't find the time. I just can't find the time, right? And there's an old adage, Parkinson's Law is the name of it. And it said, work expands to the time allotted. So finally, I just got sick of pushing the can down the road. I knew it needed to get done. It was not one of those things I could continue to procrastinate. Our team needed it and our clients needed it. And so what I did is I took my calendar because it's my time. It's not yours. It's mine. Now I could say, well, sales kind of well, that's true to a point. You do need time for sales, but you don't need 100% of the time for sales. And so, or marketing or the other disciplines that are there. Usually the operations one's the one that, I got to be on jobs. I got to whatever. Yeah, you do to some extent, but then we need to find ways to scale that to be able to do that. And so what I did is I blocked my schedule for 2 days for both mornings. And I went through, and out of the 26 modules, I now have all but 4 done. And so like in 2 days, it just all happens. So work expands the time allotted. Allot your time for sales. And so what is the Ecclesiastes? There's a season for everything. Well, there's got to be a season for marketing. There's got to be a season for sales. There's got to be a season for ops, and there's got to be a season for administration in every week that you have. Not every month, not every quarter, year, every week that you have, there's got to be an allotted section for that. And so to go through, we call it the ideal weekly schedule. You'll never hit it. It's ideal. We're hoped for. But what we have found is if you don't do it at all, you won't hit any of it. So go ahead and create an ideal weekly schedule. And you say things like this, because Matt, what you'll tell me is, well, man, I'll have people call me all the time asking for mortgage. I mean, if I don't answer that phone call, okay, there's systems to solve that. You can have somebody else answer it. You can have an answering service and get back within 60 minutes. You could do all these sorts of things. We have one business that has one of those unfortunate open office concept things. And so what they've decided is they have what they call a 50 after rule. And nobody is available to talk to anybody else in the open office until 50 minutes after the hour, up until the top of the next hour. And so once that 150, 1050 hits, everybody has to sort of stop what they're doing, looking around, doing all this, but otherwise they're locked in on their thing. And what we don't do is Matt allows Scott to rule his schedule rather than Matt dictating his schedule. And then tell me, hey, Scott, I'm not able to meet Wednesday at 10, like you asked me, but I do have 5 other meeting options because you've already blocked these out in your weekly schedule. Which one works best for you? 95% of the time, I'm going to pick one of those, right? Yeah. Because I don't have a control on my schedule either. So if you lock in what that schedule looks like within those 4 disciplines, I promise not only will you have the time, but you will be far more effective during the selling time you have. I would rather you have 20 hours of locked in focused selling time than 40 hours of distraction when you're trying to sell within. Great book on that, by the way, Cal Newport, Deep Work. It's a fantastic book on understanding the power of deep work. And there's a study out of the University of California, Santa Barbara, that says when you have been distracted from a moment of deep work, it takes you 23 minutes to get back to the level of depth that you were at before you got distracted. And all it takes to distract you is the buzz on your phone. That's it. And you're off 23 minutes. God. So we go home at 6 o'clock at night and we're like, I didn't get anything done today. Yeah, you're right. You didn't, because you were going from distraction to distraction.
Right. Yeah. Phone buzzes, email opens, you respond to that. You know, I unfortunately am a victim to that. Like I'm sure others are as well. Something that came to mind too, through, my coaching of other loan officers, because, some of the stuff, I know it, even though it's hard to practice it. Like you said, you allot the time and you have a game plan. I've talked about offense versus defense, because defense is just the emails come in, you respond to them. The phone calls come in, you respond to them. And offense is like, this hour is 100% dedicated to making 6 pieces of content. This is marketing time. This next hour, I'm going to proactively reach out to 8 of my top referral partners. I got to reach out to these 8 and nurture those relationships. This hour is this, and easier said than done, right? But to your point, like you allot the time, and the same size teams with the same amount of resources from a human capital perspective are doing 10x what somebody else is doing. And it's just like mostly this, in my opinion. Yeah. So that's awesome, man. I love these personal examples. I feel like, I've got some work to do for my own personal business.
Well, and that's where I'll go. And what we typically do when we speak a lot. And so when we speak, what we'll do is we'll tell people up front, hey, we're going to open the pantry door of everything that you could do, but follow the Gary. You're in the real estate business. Gary Keller, co-founder of Keller Williams, he asked this question: what's the one thing that by doing that one thing would make everything else easier? And so if you can just look at this and go, okay, these guys have talked about a master process roadmap. They've talked about collaborating on one process and delegating that out to the team. They've talked about a team meeting. They've talked about a vision story. They've talked about all this thing. But don't leave here and go, God, I can't do that all, because then you're just back to throwing Hail Marys. No, stop. Just pick one. Just pick one. What's the one thing out of all of that you feel like, as you listen to this, if I did it, make everything easier? And then you could start to really drill and put all your focus in on that snowball. And once you've got that, then move to the next one thing, and then the next one thing. And that'll help keep your sanity while you begin to lock in those 4 elements of every single week. So maybe even that's where to start, is look at your week and go, okay, I've got 4 things that I do every week: marketing, sales, ops, admin. Where do I put them, and how much time do I allot them? And if you start there, now we can bring some of the process stuff into that time.
Yeah. And I think too, that's where a lot of the chaos, in my opinion, is rooted, at least in the businesses that I'm surrounded by, is that without a game plan, they're just at the mercy of whatever comes to them.
Completely.
And that pulls you in multiple directions. To your point, you get distracted, then you're, 23 minutes to get back to the level of focus where it's like, man, I just wanted to write this 1-page process doc for how we handle leads. It took me 4.5 days, where it would take 45 minutes if it was a concentrated 45 minutes, phone's on silent, email is shut. I've got it in my calendar and I'm playing offense. And that's what my task is for the hour. So
that's right.
Thanks for this chat, man. This was really insightful. I'm sure the Get Better Every Day audience will enjoy it. Any parting words or parting advice for the Get Better Every Day listener?
No, I think that's the biggest thing, is to pick one. Don't overwhelm yourself even more than you already are. We do have a common enemy of chaos. It wants to beat you, and it's going to make you feel good about your chaos after a while. And so start to listen to that and go, wait, that doesn't sound right. I feel like clarity would be a much better option around this. So just pick one tool, even if it's some book you've recently read, whatever, pick one thing that by doing that one thing would make everything else easier and necessary.
I'm taking away radical clarity. I like that term, and I'm going to try to do what I can do within my own personal business, create radical clarity for everybody else who's involved with this, so that we feel like
we've got an assessment. It's kind of a fun assessment if you or anybody that you're with wants to go take, and it'll give you a back end metric on the health of your business to see how sort of chaotic or non-chaotic it is. So instead of just thinking it is, it'll actually give you a numerical value between 0 and 45 as to what level that thing is, and then some sort of suggestions on what to do. So if you just go to mybusinessonpurpose.com/healthy, and it'll take you about 5-7 minutes. And anybody who's got multiple team members, this is a really good exercise for everybody to do it together. And that way you can start comparing and go, wait a second, you got a 32 and I got an 8. Like, we are not on the same page, around this. And usually it's the owners that tick a little higher. And then they hear the reality, we call them blind spots, from their team members. And they're like, oh my God, I didn't even see that. And so it's a really, really helpful exercise.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm going to do that. You remind us again of the website to go check that out.
Yeah, it's mybusinessonpurpose.com/healthy.
All right. I'm going to go check that out. And for anybody who wants to get in touch with you and your team, is that the same place to go there for?
Yeah, they can go right there. Go to mybusinessonpurpose.com/healthy. And then we've got other things that you can go see and do on the website that are we've got 600 some odd episodes on our podcast. We've got a book up there. It's super helpful. So there's plenty of resources to be able to get started.
Awesome. Cool, man. I'm going to check it out. Hope others do too. Thanks for your time, Scott. Appreciate you, man.
Matt, thank you.